My name is Sarah Mitchell. I'm 29 years old, and 6 weeks ago, I sat in a lawyer's office and learned that my grandmother had been planning my revenge for 40 years. My parents didn't come to my wedding. They missed the ceremony, the reception, the first dance, all of it because my younger sister Emma had a gallery opening the same weekend in New York. An art show, her third one that year. Mom called me the morning of my wedding and said, "You understand, don't you, sweetie? Emma's career is at such a critical point. We'll celebrate with you another time." There was no other time. No makeup dinner, no apology gift, just silence. That was May 14th, 2022. I got married in a small chapel in Asheville, North Carolina, with 47 guests and 2 empty seats in the front row reserved for people who never showed up. My husband James held my hand during the ceremony and whispered, "Their loss." I smiled and said, "I know." But I didn't know. Not really. Not until September 2024, when a woman named Patricia Holbrook called my office and said, "Ms. Mitchell, I'm the executor of your grandmother's estate. We need to discuss your inheritance." Before I tell you what happened in that meeting, please take a moment to like and subscribe, but only if this story genuinely resonates with you. Drop your location and local time in the comments. I'd love to know where you're listening from. Now, let me take you back to the beginning, to the moment I realized I would always be second place in my own family. I grew up in Chapel Hill, North Carolina. Tree-lined streets, brick colonial houses, the kind of southern college town where everyone knows everyone. My father, Robert Mitchell, was a psychology professor at UNC. My mother, Diana, taught art history at a private high school. They were educated, cultured, the kind of people who hosted dinner parties where guests discussed literature and philosophy over wine. They had 2 daughters, Emma, born in 1997, and me, born in 1995. 2 years apart, a lifetime of difference. From the moment Emma could hold a crayon, my parents saw something in her. Talent, they called it. Genius, even. She drew these elaborate, swirling pictures of imaginary worlds, full of color and movement. By age 5, she was taking private art lessons. By age 8, she'd had her first piece displayed in a local cafe. By age 12, she'd won a statewide youth art competition with a painting that sold for $3,000. My parents framed the newspaper article and hung it in the living room. I played soccer. I was good at math. I got straight A's. None of it mattered. The narrative in our house was clear. Emma was exceptional. Sarah was dependable. Emma needed support, encouragement, opportunities. Sarah would be fine on her own. I remember the exact moment I understood this. I was 13 years old, sitting at the kitchen table with a report card. All A's, including A+ in honors algebra. I showed it to my father, expecting praise. He glanced at it, nodded, and said, "Good work, Sarah. Consistency is important." Then he turned to Emma, who'd brought home a B- in English, and spent 20 minutes reassuring her that grades didn't define creativity, that her art was more valuable than any test score. I sat there holding my report card, feeling invisible. That moment set the pattern for the next 16 years. When I got into UNC on a partial academic scholarship, my parents took me out to dinner at Applebee's. When Emma got into the Rhode Island School of Design, my parents threw a party for 60 people and commissioned a cake shaped like a painter's palette. When I graduated college with a degree in accounting, my parents attended the ceremony but left early because Emma had an art show opening in Durham that evening. When Emma graduated RISD, both my parents flew to Providence, stayed for a week, and rented a beach house to celebrate. I moved to Asheville in 2018, got a job at a mid-sized accounting firm, and tried to build a life separate from the constant comparisons. I met James in 2019. He was a software engineer, quiet and steady, the kind of man who noticed when I was upset and didn't need me to explain why. We got engaged in December 2021. Small proposal, just the two of us on a hiking trail in the Blue Ridge Mountains. I called my parents that night, excited, nervous, hoping this would be a moment they'd celebrate with me. Mom answered. I told her the news. She said, "Oh, that's wonderful, honey. Have you set a date?" "We're thinking May. Spring wedding, something small and meaningful." There was a pause. "May is tricky, Sarah. Emma has several gallery obligations in the spring. Let me check her schedule and get back to you." I should have known then, should have recognized the sign, but I wanted to believe they'd choose me, just once. We set the date, May 14th, 2022, sent out save the dates in January. My parents confirmed they'd be there. Wouldn't miss it, Dad said. In March, Emma called. Sarah, I need to tell you something. I got accepted into a group show at a gallery in Chelsea. It's May 14th. My stomach dropped. That's my wedding day. I know. I tried to get them to move it, but the gallery has a strict schedule. This is a huge opportunity, Sarah. This gallery has connections to the Whitney, to the Guggenheim. This could change my career. So what are you saying? I'm saying I can't come to your wedding. I'm really sorry. I took a breath. Okay, I understand. It's your career. Thank you. I knew you'd get it. She hung up. I sat there feeling numb. Emma missing my wedding hurt, but I could accept it. Career opportunities are important. What I couldn't accept came 2 days later. Mom called. Sarah, your father and I have been talking. We're going to New York for Emma's show. What? Emma needs us there. This is a pivotal moment for her. You have James. You'll have his family. Emma will be alone in a room full of critics and buyers. She needs support. Mom, it's my wedding. And we're so happy for you, sweetheart. But you're stable. You're settled. Emma's life is still being built. Surely you can understand that. I understood perfectly. I just didn't accept it. Mom, if you don't come to my wedding, I will never forget it. There was silence. Then, quietly, Don't be dramatic, Sarah. We'll celebrate with you another time. This isn't personal. It is personal, Mom. It's my wedding day. I'm sorry you feel that way. We've made our decision. We'll send a gift. She hung up. I stood in my apartment, shaking, and called the one person who'd never let me down. My grandmother, Helen Mitchell. Grandma Helen was 82 years old, my father's mother, a retired English teacher who lived in a modest house in Raleigh. She'd been widowed for 15 years and spent her days reading, gardening, and writing long letters in perfect cursive. I told her everything. She listened without interrupting. When I finished, she said, "They're not coming?" "No." "Then I'll sit in both seats." "Grandma, you don't have to." "Sarah, listen to me. I've watched your parents do this to you your whole life. Watched them choose Emma over and over while you stood there taking it with grace. I won't let them ruin your wedding day. I'll be there, front row, for both of them." She kept her promise. May 14th, 2022 was a perfect spring day. The chapel was filled with flowers, sunlight streaming through stained glass windows. James stood at the altar in a gray suit, smiling, and in the front row, Grandma Helen sat in the aisle seat, her purse placed on the empty seat beside her, a placeholder for the people who chose not to come. When the officiant said, "Who gives this woman to be married?" Grandma Helen stood and said, "I do. Her family does." Her voice was strong, clear, no hesitation. I walked down that aisle with my head high, and when I reached James, I didn't cry. I smiled, because Grandma Helen had given me something my parents never did, the certainty that I mattered. The reception was beautiful, small, intimate, full of people who actually wanted to be there. Grandma Helen gave a toast to Sarah, who has always been enough, even when others couldn't see it. May your marriage be filled with people who choose you every single day. Everyone raised their glasses. I hugged her and whispered, "Thank you." She squeezed my hand. "They'll regret this, sweetheart. I promise you that." I didn't know what she meant. Not until 2 years later, when Patricia Holbrook called. Let me show you what a lifetime of being second choice looks like. It's not one moment. It's 1,000 small cuts, a pattern so consistent you start to believe it's normal. When I was 16, I made the varsity soccer team as a sophomore, captain by junior year. We went to the state finals my senior year, 2013. The championship game was on a Saturday in Raleigh. I scored the winning goal in overtime. We won 2-1. My parents weren't there. Emma had an art portfolio review with a visiting instructor from Savannah College of Art and Design that same afternoon. Mom said, "This review could determine Emma's entire future, Sarah. You understand, right?" I said I understood. I played the biggest game of my high school career in front of a crowd that included my coach's parents, my teammates' families, and one empty section where mine should have been. My coach, Mrs. Patterson, hugged me after we won and said, "I'm sorry they weren't here to see this." I smiled. "It's okay. They had something important." She looked at me for a long moment. "So did you, Sarah. So did you." When I was 18, I got accepted to UNC Chapel Hill with a $12,000 annual academic scholarship. My parents were pleased but not excited. "That's wonderful, honey. Very practical," Dad said. I'd also applied to Duke, gotten in, but the tuition was $60,000 a year, and my scholarship didn't cover it. I asked if they could help with the difference. Dad shook his head. "We're already stretched thin with Emma's art school tuition. RISD is $70,000 a year. We can't afford both." "But you're paying for Emma's school." "Emma's education is specialized. She needs that environment to develop her talent." "You'll get a fine education at UNC. Besides, you got a scholarship. That shows you can manage on your own." I went to UNC, worked 2 jobs to cover what the scholarship didn't, graduated in 2017 with $28,000 in student loans. Emma graduated from RISD in 2019, debt-free, with a year abroad in Florence that my parents funded as a graduation gift. When I got my first job offer at Morton & Associates, an accounting firm in Asheville, starting salary $46,000, I called home excited. Mom said, "That's great, Sarah. Very stable. Oh, before I forget, Emma just got accepted to an artist residency in Vermont. 3 months, all expenses paid. Isn't that amazing?" "Yeah, Mom. Amazing." I hung up and cried in my car. The pattern wasn't just financial. It was emotional, temporal, spatial. My parents' world revolved around Emma's needs, Emma's schedule, Emma's feelings. When Emma had a gallery show, my parents would drive hours, bring flowers, invite friends, post about it on Facebook with glowing captions about their talented daughter. When I got promoted to senior accountant in 2020, I called to tell them. Dad said, "Congratulations, Sarah, that's a nice step up." No celebration, no Facebook post, just acknowledgement and silence. Christmas was the worst. Every year, the same script. We'd gather at my parents' house in Chapel Hill. Emma would arrive with some new boyfriend, always an artist or musician, always dramatic. She'd dominate the conversation, talking about her latest project, her upcoming shows, her artistic vision. My parents would listen, rapt, asking questions, offering encouragement. I'd sit on the couch with James, eating cookies, barely spoken to except when Mom needed help in the kitchen, or Dad wanted someone to refill drinks. One year, 2021, I tried to share news about a new client I'd landed, a major account worth $200,000 annually to the firm. I started to explain during dinner. Emma interrupted. "Oh, before I forget, I'm being featured in Art News next month. They're doing a whole piece on emerging Southern artists." The conversation shifted immediately. My client was forgotten. After dinner, Grandma Helen pulled me aside in the kitchen. "You landed a major account?" "Yeah, it's a big deal for the firm." "Did you tell your parents?" I tried. Emma had news too. Grandma Helen's face tightened. "Emma always has news, Sarah, and your parents always listen. They've trained you to accept crumbs." "It's fine, Grandma. I'm used to it." "That's the problem, sweetheart. You shouldn't have to be used to it." The wedding snub wasn't an anomaly. It was the culmination of 27 years of being overlooked, undervalued, and treated like my achievements didn't matter because they weren't artistic or dramatic or interesting enough. After my parents chose Emma's gallery show over my wedding, I stopped calling them, stopped initiating contact. I wanted to see how long it would take for them to notice. 3 months. In August 2022, Mom called. "Sarah, you've been distant. Is everything okay?" "I'm fine." "We haven't heard from you since the wedding. How is married life?" "Good." "Are you upset with us?" I paused, considered lying, smoothing it over, being the dependable daughter who never made waves. Instead, I said, "You missed my wedding, Mom. You chose Emma's art show over my wedding day." We explained that. Emma needed us. I needed you. Silence. Then, "Sarah, you're being unfair. You know how important Emma's career is. We thought you'd understand." "I understand perfectly. I'm just done pretending it doesn't hurt." "You're being dramatic." "No, Mom. I'm being honest. For the first time in my life, I'm being honest about how you've treated me." She sighed. "When you're ready to be reasonable, call us." She hung up. I didn't call back. Grandma Helen called me once a week after that. We'd talk for hours. She'd ask about work, about James, about our life in Asheville. She never mentioned my parents unless I brought them up. One day, in early 2023, I asked her, "Did Dad treat you like this? Like you didn't matter?" "Your father is a complicated man, Sarah. He grew up believing that love should be earned through achievement. I think he's passed that belief to Emma, made her think she has to be extraordinary to be valued. But with you, he sees stability and assumes you don't need validation. That's not fair." "No, it's not, but fairness and family don't always align." "Do you think they'll ever see what they did?" Grandma Helen was quiet for a moment. "I think they'll see it eventually, when it's too late to fix." I didn't understand what she meant then. But in September 2024, when I sat in Patricia Holbrook's office, I finally did. Grandma Helen died on August 3rd, 2024. Heart failure, sudden but not unexpected at 84. I got the call from my father. His voice was flat, mechanical. "Sarah, your grandmother passed away this morning. The funeral is Saturday in Raleigh." I sat down hard. "What happened?" "Her heart. She went peacefully in her sleep. The funeral home is handling arrangements." "Okay, I'll be there. Emma's flying in from New York. She has a show next week, but she's making time." Of course she was. I drove to Raleigh on Friday, August 9th. James came with me, took time off work without hesitation. We stayed in a hotel because I couldn't stomach the idea of staying at my parents' house. The funeral was small, maybe 40 people. Former colleagues from Grandma Helen's teaching days, neighbors, a few distant relatives. My parents sat in the front row with Emma between them. I sat 3 rows back with James. During the service, my father gave a eulogy. He talked about Helen's love of literature, her dedication to teaching, her quiet strength. "She was a woman of principle," he said. "She believed in doing what was right, even when it was difficult." I almost laughed. The irony was lost on him. After the service, there was a small reception at my parents' house. I helped set out food, made coffee, played the role of dutiful daughter. Emma held court in the living room, accepting condolences like a grieving celebrity. "Grandma was always so supportive of my art," she told a group of relatives. "She came to my first gallery show in New York. She was so proud." I bit my tongue. Grandma Helen had gone to that show because she happened to be in New York visiting a friend. It wasn't a special trip for Emma, but Emma had a way of rewriting history to center herself. I was in the kitchen washing dishes when Patricia Holbrook approached me. She was a woman in her late 50s, silver hair cut in a sharp bob, wearing a black suit that screamed professional competence. "Sarah Mitchell?" I dried my hands. "Yes." "I'm Patricia Holbrook. I was your grandmother's attorney. I'm sorry for your loss." "Thank you." She handed me a business card. "Your grandmother left specific instructions regarding her estate. I'll need you to come to my office next week to discuss your inheritance." I blinked. "My inheritance?" "Yes. Tuesday at 2 p.m. if possible. The address is on the card." "Will my father and Emma be there?" Patricia's expression didn't change, but something flickered in her eyes. "No, your grandmother's instructions were quite clear. This meeting is for you alone." She walked away before I could ask more questions. The following Tuesday, James and I drove to Raleigh. Patricia's office was in a modern building downtown, all glass and steel. The receptionist led us to a conference room. Patricia was already there, a thick folder on the table in front of her. "Mr. Westbrook, you're welcome to stay if Sarah wishes." I nodded. James sat beside me. Patricia opened the folder. "Your grandmother executed this will in 1984, 1 year after you were born. She updated it periodically, most recently in March of this year, but the core provisions have remained consistent for 40 years. 1984? I said. "She planned this when I was a baby?" "Not planned exactly. Prepared. Your grandmother was a meticulous woman. She wanted to ensure certain outcomes, regardless of how the family dynamics evolved." Patricia slid a document across the table. Helen Mitchell's estate is valued at approximately $1.7 million. It includes her house in Raleigh, valued at $420,000, a stock portfolio worth $680,000, savings accounts totaling $310,000, and a life insurance policy with a $290,000 payout. I stared at the numbers. I had no idea she had that much. Your grandmother was frugal and invested wisely. She was a teacher for 38 years, lived modestly, and saved aggressively. She never touched the life insurance payout she received when your grandfather died in 2009. Patricia turned to the next page. The estate is divided as follows. To your father, Robert Mitchell, she leaves $50,000 and her collection of first edition books. To your sister, Emma Mitchell, she leaves $50,000 and a handwritten letter. I waited. Patricia looked at me. To you, Sarah Mitchell, she leaves everything else. The house, the stocks, the savings, the life insurance, approximately $1.6 million in total assets. The room tilted. What? Your grandmother was very clear. She wrote an accompanying letter explaining her reasoning. Would you like me to read it? I couldn't speak. James squeezed my hand. Yes, he said. Patricia pulled out a single sheet of paper. Grandma Helen's perfect cursive filling the page. She began to read. My dearest Sarah, if you're hearing this, I'm gone and you're sitting in Patricia's office wondering why I've done what I've done. Let me explain. I've watched your parents fail you for your entire life. I've watched them pour their energy, their money, their pride into Emma while expecting you to simply endure. I've watched you work twice as hard for half the recognition. I've watched you succeed quietly while Emma floundered loudly, and I've watched your parents choose her noise over your substance every single time. The final straw was your wedding. When they chose Emma's gallery show over your marriage, I knew nothing would ever change, so I decided to change the ending myself. This inheritance is not charity, Sarah. It's what you've always deserved, to be chosen, to be prioritized, to be valued. Use it wisely. Buy a home. Invest in your future. Build the life you want without waiting for your parents' approval. And when they ask why I left them so little, tell them the truth. Tell them I gave my money to the grandchild who never demanded it, who never expected it, who simply showed up with grace and dignity while everyone else fought for the spotlight. I love you, my darling girl. You were always enough. Grandma Helen. Patricia set the letter down. I was crying. James was crying. Patricia handed me a tissue box, her professional composure intact, but her eyes suspiciously bright. There's more, she said gently. Your grandmother left instructions that you are not to share the details of this inheritance with your family unless you choose to. However, she did request that I inform your father and sister of their portions at a family meeting, which I'm required to schedule within 30 days of this conversation. A family meeting? Where I'll read the will aloud to all interested parties. It's standard procedure, but your grandmother specifically requested it in this case. She wanted them to know what they received and, by extension, what they didn't. I looked at James. He nodded. I looked back at Patricia. Schedule it. The family meeting was scheduled for September 28th, 2024, at Patricia Holbrook's office, 3 weeks after my private meeting. 3 weeks during which I carried the weight of Grandma Helen's gift like a secret bomb waiting to detonate. I didn't tell my parents. Didn't tell Emma. When Mom called to ask if I'd heard from Grandma's attorney, I said, yes, she wants to meet about the estate. When? End of September. She said she'd send you the details. I assume Helen left everything to your father. It's his mother, after all. I said nothing. Sarah? I don't know, Mom. I guess we'll find out. That conversation was 2 weeks before the meeting. After that, silence. My parents didn't call to check on me, didn't ask how I was coping with Grandma Helen's death. Emma texted once. Mom said there's an estate thing. Let me know if I need to fly down. I wrote back. Patricia will contact you directly. She didn't respond. In the meantime, James and I had decisions to make. Patricia had advised me to keep the inheritance quiet until after the family meeting. But she'd also encouraged me to start thinking about how I wanted to use it. Real estate is a good investment, she said. Your grandmother's house, for instance. You could sell it or rent it out. You could also use the liquid assets to buy property in Asheville. Invest in your future. We looked at houses. Nothing serious, just browsing online listings, imagining what was now possible. There was a craftsman bungalow near downtown Asheville, 3 bedrooms, original hardwood floors, a wide front porch, listed at $485,000. Pre-inheritance, it was a fantasy. Post-inheritance, it was a decision. We could actually afford this, James said, scrolling through photos. We could pay cash. I stared at the screen. My entire adult life had been defined by financial caution, by budgeting down to the last dollar, by saying no to things I wanted because I couldn't justify the cost. And now, suddenly, I could say yes. It felt surreal. Let's wait until after the meeting, I said. I want this settled first. James understood. The meeting wasn't just about money. It was about something deeper. It was about my parents finally seeing the consequences of their choices. September 28th arrived cold and gray, early fall weather rolling into Raleigh. I wore a navy blue dress, simple and professional. James wore a suit. We arrived at Patricia's office at 1:45 p.m. My parents were already there, sitting in the waiting room. Emma sat between them, scrolling on her phone. Mom looked up when we entered. Sarah, James, hello? Hi, Mom. Dad nodded. Sarah? Emma glanced up, gave a tight smile, then returned to her phone. We sat across from them in silence. The tension was thick, awkward. At exactly 2 p.m., Patricia emerged and led us to a large conference room. There was a long table, 6 chairs, a pitcher of water, and a stack of documents. Patricia sat at the head of the table. I sat to her right with James beside me. My parents sat across from us, Emma next to Dad. Patricia began without preamble. Thank you all for coming. As executor of Helen Mitchell's estate, I'm required to disclose the terms of her will to all named beneficiaries. This meeting serves that purpose. She opened the folder. Helen Mitchell passed away on August 3, 2024. Her estate has been appraised at $1.7 million, including real property, financial assets, and life insurance. My father's eyebrows rose. I didn't realize Mother had that much. She was a diligent saver and investor, Patricia said. The estate is divided as follows. She looked at my father. To Robert Mitchell, Helen leaves $50,000 and her collection of first edition books, currently housed at her residence. Dad nodded slowly. That's generous. Patricia turned to Emma. To Emma Mitchell, Helen leaves $50,000 and a personal letter. Emma looked up from her phone. 50,000? Yes. What about the house? The house is not part of your inheritance. Emma frowned but said nothing. Patricia turned to me. To Sarah Mitchell, Helen leaves the remainder of the estate. This includes the house at 428 Oberlin Road in Raleigh, valued at $420,000, stock portfolios valued at $680,000, savings accounts totaling $310,000, and a life insurance payout of $290,000. The total value of Sarah's inheritance is approximately $1.6 million. The room went silent. My father's face drained of color. My mother's mouth opened slightly. Emma's phone clattered onto the table. I'm sorry, what? Emma said. Patricia's voice remained calm. Sarah inherits the bulk of the estate. That's not possible, Mom said. Helen wouldn't. She's Robert's mother. The estate should go to him or be split evenly among the grandchildren. Helen executed this will in 1984 and updated it multiple times, most recently in March 2024. She was of sound mind and clear intent. The will is legally binding. My father looked at me. Sarah, did you know about this? I met his eyes. Yes. Patricia told me 2 weeks ago. And you didn't think to mention it? Why would I? It's Grandma Helen's decision, not mine. Emma leaned forward. This is insane. Why would she leave everything to you? Patricia answered. Helen left a letter explaining her reasoning. Sarah, do you consent to my reading it aloud? Every eye turned to me. I could have said no, could have kept Grandma Helen's words private, protected my parents from the truth. But I thought about my wedding day, about the empty seats in the front row, about 29 years of being second choice. "Read it," I said. Patricia read the letter. Every word. The room was silent except for her voice, steady and clear, delivering Grandma Helen's final judgment. When she finished, my mother was crying. My father sat rigid, his jaw clenched. Emma stared at the table. "That's not fair," Emma said finally. "I didn't ask them to skip Sarah's wedding. That wasn't my fault." "You didn't object either," I said quietly. She looked at me. "What?" "You didn't say, 'Mom, Dad, you should go to Sarah's wedding.' You didn't offer to postpone your show or ask the gallery to reschedule. You let them choose you. You always let them choose you." "Because they wanted to. I didn't force them." "No, you just accepted it as your due." My father spoke, his voice tight. "Sarah, your grandmother was bitter. She never approved of how we raised you girls. This will is her way of punishing us." "No, Dad, this will is her way of balancing the scales." The silence after I spoke was absolute. My father stared at me like I'd slapped him. My mother wiped her eyes with a tissue, mascara smudging. Emma's face was red, anger barely contained. Patricia Holbrook sat at the head of the table, impassive, waiting. Finally, my mother spoke. "Sarah, you can't possibly think you deserve $1.6 million while your father and sister get $50,000 each." I looked at her, really looked at her. The woman who'd raised me, who'd taught me to be polite and accommodating, who'd trained me to accept less. "I don't know what I deserve, Mom, but Grandma Helen thought I deserved this. And honestly, after 29 years of being treated like an afterthought, I'm not going to argue with her." "You're being selfish," Emma said, her voice rising. "You're taking money that should be split fairly." "Like the tuition money was split fairly?" I asked. "Like the attention, the support, the celebration was split fairly?" "That's different. I had talent. You needed everything, Emma. And you got it. Every time. I needed my parents at my wedding, and they chose your gallery show. So forgive me if I'm not feeling particularly generous right now." My father cleared his throat. "Sarah, regardless of past grievances, this inheritance is disproportionate. Your grandmother was not thinking clearly in her final years. We could contest the will." Patricia's voice cut through, sharp and cold. "Mr. Mitchell, I would advise against that. Helen updated this will in March 2024 after a full cognitive evaluation by a licensed physician. She was of sound mind. Any contest would be expensive, time-consuming, and ultimately unsuccessful. The will is ironclad." Dad's jaw tightened. "Then you've poisoned her against us." "I barely saw her the last 2 years," I said. "I was in Asheville. She made this decision on her own, Dad. She watched you choose Emma over me for 29 years, and she decided to correct it the only way she could." "By destroying our family?" Mom said. "No, Mom, you destroyed our family when you skipped my wedding. Grandma Helen just made sure I'd be okay despite it." Emma stood abruptly. "I can't listen to this. You're acting like a victim, Sarah, but you've always been fine. You've always been stable and successful. I'm the one who's struggled. I'm the one who's had to fight for every opportunity." "You got $70,000 a year for art school," I said, my voice steady. "You got a year abroad in Florence. You got a trust fund of attention and support. I got student loans and the expectation that I'd figure it out on my own. You didn't struggle, Emma. You were funded. My art is my struggle." "Your art is your job, and it's a job our parents subsidized while I worked 2 jobs to put myself through school." Emma grabbed her purse. "I don't have to sit here and be attacked." "Then leave," I said. "You're good at that, leaving when things get uncomfortable." She stared at me, shocked. Then she turned and walked out. The door slammed behind her. My father stood. "This is unconscionable, Sarah. You're letting your bitterness destroy this family." "I'm not destroying anything, Dad. I'm just done pretending that the way you treated me was okay." He looked at Patricia. "Is there anything we can do?" "You can accept the terms of the will," Patricia said. "Or you can contest it and lose. Those are your options." He turned back to me. You would let this stand? You would take $1.6 million while your sister and I split $100,000? Grandma Helen left it to me, Dad. It's not mine to let stand. It's already mine. His face flushed. You're spiteful. Just like your grandmother. No, I said quietly. I'm just done being invisible. He walked out. Mom remained, sitting across from me, her tissue shredded in her hands. For a long moment, she didn't speak. Then, softly, I'm sorry we missed your wedding, Sarah. I waited. I know that hurt you, but Emma needed us. And I didn't? She looked up, tears streaming. You've always been so strong, so capable. I thought you'd be fine without us. I wasn't fine, Mom. I was heartbroken. But I smiled and got through it because that's what I've always done. Smile and get through it while you and Dad focused on Emma. We didn't mean to neglect you. Maybe not. But you did. Over and over, and Grandma Helen noticed. Mom stood slowly. I hope the money makes you happy, Sarah. It's not about the money, Mom. It's about finally being chosen. Even if it's by someone who's gone. She left without another word. Patricia and I sat in the quiet conference room. James reached over and took my hand. You okay? He asked. I nodded. Yeah, I think I am. Patricia slid a folder across the table. These are the final documents. The estate will be fully transferred within 60 days. The house is yours to sell or keep. The financial assets are liquid and accessible. Your grandmother set up everything to make this as simple as possible. Thank you, Patricia. She stood. Your grandmother was an extraordinary woman, Sarah. She loved you very much. I know. As we left the office, I felt lighter. Not happy exactly, but free. Free from the weight of expectation, from the hope that my parents would someday see me. They wouldn't. They couldn't. But Grandma Helen had. And she'd made sure I'd never have to beg for scraps again. We bought the Craftsman bungalow in October 2024, paid cash, $485,000, no mortgage, no debt. The house had everything we'd dreamed of: original hardwood floors, a renovated kitchen with marble countertops, a wide front porch with a swing, and a backyard big enough for a garden. We moved in on November 1st. James built bookshelves in the living room. I planted rose bushes along the fence, the same kind Grandma Helen grew in her yard in Raleigh. Every time I pulled into the driveway, I felt the same quiet amazement. This is mine. Not because I sacrificed or scraped or made myself small, because someone loved me enough to make sure I'd be secure. I sold Grandma Helen's house in December, listed it at $420,000, sold it within 2 weeks for $438,000. I didn't need 2 houses, and keeping it felt like holding on to the past. The buyer was a young couple, both teachers, who loved the garden and the built-in bookshelves. This house has good energy, the wife said during the final walkthrough. I smiled. It does. Someone very special lived here. The sale closed on December 18th, 2024. I took the proceeds and put them into a diversified investment account, following the advice of a financial planner Patricia had recommended. The stock portfolio Grandma Helen left me was worth $680,000 in September. By December, with smart management, it had grown to $702,000. I was 29 years old with a net worth of over $2 million. It felt surreal. My parents didn't call after the estate meeting. No apology, no attempt to reconcile, just silence. Emma sent one text in October. I hope you're happy with yourself. I didn't respond. In November, I got a call from Uncle Peter, my father's younger brother. Sarah, I heard about the will. Your dad's pretty upset. I figured. For what it's worth, I think your grandmother did the right thing. I watched what they did to you growing up, watched them pour everything into Emma while you got table scraps. It wasn't right. Thank you, Uncle Peter. That means a lot. If you ever need family, real family, you call me. Okay? Okay. It was the first time anyone from my father's side had acknowledged what happened. It helped. Christmas 2024 was the first one I didn't spend with my parents. James and I hosted instead. We invited his family, Uncle Peter and his wife, and a few close friends. 12 people around our dining room table eating roast chicken and sweet potatoes, laughing and talking. No tension, no comparisons, no one ignored or overlooked. It was the best Christmas of my life. On Christmas morning, I got a card in the mail, my mother's handwriting. Inside, a short note. Sarah, I've been thinking about what your grandmother wrote in her letter, about how we failed you. I don't know if I can admit that fully, but I know we hurt you. I'm sorry we missed your wedding. I'm sorry for a lot of things. I don't expect forgiveness, but I wanted you to know I'm trying to understand. Love, Mom. I read it twice, put it on the mantel next to a photo of Grandma Helen. I didn't call her, didn't respond. Maybe one day, but not yet. Emma's gallery career continued. I saw a photo on Facebook in January 2025, her standing next to a painting in a Chelsea gallery, smiling at the camera. The caption read, "Grateful for this journey and everyone who believed in me." I scrolled past. My father retired from UNC in December 2024. Uncle Peter told me he was struggling financially, that the $50,000 from Grandma Helen's estate had gone toward paying off credit card debt. Apparently, funding Emma's art career for a decade had left them stretched thin. I felt a flicker of something. Not quite sympathy, not quite satisfaction, just acknowledgement. They made their choices. Now, they lived with them. In February 2025, I got a letter from Patricia Holbrook. Inside was a second letter from Grandma Helen marked, "To be opened 1 year after my death." I sat on the porch swing, the same one James had hung in our new house, and opened it. My dearest Sarah, if you're reading this, a year has passed since I left you. I hope the inheritance has brought you security, but more than that, I hope it's brought you peace. I know your parents will be hurt. I know Emma will feel slighted. But you must understand something, my darling. Love is not just words or feelings. It's action. It's showing up. It's choosing someone every single day, even when it's inconvenient. Your parents loved Emma loudly and you quietly, and they convinced themselves that was enough. But quiet love that comes with conditions, with second place, with crumbs, isn't love at all. It's tolerance. You deserved more. By the time you read this, I hope you've built a life that reflects your worth. I hope you've surrounded yourself with people who choose you first. And I hope you've forgiven me for not intervening sooner. I should have said something years ago. I should have fought harder for you while I was alive. This inheritance is my apology and my final act of choosing you. You were always my favorite, Sarah. Not because you were better than Emma, but because you loved without expectation, gave without keeping score, and endured without bitterness. Those are rare qualities. Don't lose them. But don't let anyone take advantage of them either. Live fully, love deeply, and know that somewhere I'm watching and smiling. With all my love, Grandma Helen. I sat on that porch swing and cried, not from sadness, from gratitude, from relief, from the overwhelming certainty that I had been loved, deeply and unconditionally, by someone who saw me. James found me there an hour later. "You okay?" he asked. I handed him the letter. He read it, tears welling in his eyes. "She really loved you." "Yeah, she did." He sat beside me, and we swung gently, watching the sunset over Asheville. The house behind us, warm and full of light. The future ahead of us, open and ours. So that's my story. A lifetime of being second choice, a grandmother who saw the truth, and an inheritance that changed everything. If you take anything from this, let it be this. You cannot force people to choose you, but you can choose yourself. You can build boundaries. You can walk away from tables where you're not fed, and you can accept love from the people who offer it freely, without conditions, without comparisons. My parents didn't come to my wedding, but Grandma Helen did, and in the end, that's what mattered. Before I go, let me tell you where everyone is now. My parents still live in Chapel Hill. They've downsized to a smaller house, sold the family home to cover debts. We exchange holiday cards, but nothing more. Emma is still in New York, still making art, still the center of their world. I see her posts occasionally. We're not close. Maybe we never were. Uncle Peter and I have lunch once a month. He's become the family I choose. And me? I'm sitting in my house, the one I own outright, drinking coffee on the porch James built. The garden is blooming, the mortgage is paid, and for the first time in my life, I'm not waiting for someone to choose me, because I already have been chosen by the one person whose opinion mattered most. If this story resonated with you, thank you for listening. And remember, being chosen isn't about being perfect, it's about being seen. Grandma Helen saw me, and that made all the difference. Goodbye for now. And remember, the people who truly love you will show up. Everyone else is just taking up space.